But again, this is what he's implying here. And then, the full right-wing positions are, he says, when you print too much fake money, inflation is coming, and that's going to be a problem. Guys, this is Austrian economics nonsense.
Austrian economics nonsense.
That's what this is. So in other words, he's not taking the modern monetary theory position.
See, Kyle likes modern monetary theory, just in case anyone thought I was attacking a straw man. I think today is a good reminder that the whole socialism versus capitalism debate, discussion, whatever you want to call it, is not about economics. And I say this due to some recent hot takes I've seen, like this gem right here from our good friend Stephanie Rule, who I guess has 680,000 followers on Twitter. As you can see, she's an anchor on MSNBC, so this is a pretty prominent person. But for those who don't know, according to a lot of sources, there is a labor shortage, particularly for small businesses. There is a business shortage, or a labor shortage, and a lot of people are saying it's a result of generous unemployment benefits. And people like Stephanie Rule are responding to this by saying stuff like, why is it that when employment benefits are too generous rather than the pay offered by employers too low? Pay more, you find more workers. If margins are so thin that you cannot increase pay without passing it through losing customers, your business model doesn't work. We've seen this sentiment shared by other people like Kyle Kalinske, Mr. Secular Talk. For those who don't know, this person has almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube now. Holy smokes. But he shares this same sentiment.
Is what this is. The government is paying people not to work. So which thing are you against?
The government is paying people not to work, and Kyle seems to just dismiss that. Oh, yeah, paying people not to work. Doesn't really seem bothered by the government paying people to not work.
Unemployment insurance? The stimulus checks? Which thing are you against? I'm very curious, Tucker. Please.
Now, he's responding to Tucker Carlson, and for those who know me, I am not a fan of Tucker Carlson. But Tucker did make a good point in one of his segments. He said that, yeah, it's kind of concerning that a lot of people are receiving more in unemployment than they would by going back to work. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but about a year ago when the whole COVID pandemic started, instead of lifting restrictions on things like vaccines, new vaccines, and COVID tests and other treatments that might help alleviate us from COVID, help protect us from COVID, help us prevent the spread of COVID. The government decided to respond by locking down the economy, shutting down businesses, closing businesses, which, put a lot of people out of work, put a lot of stress on businesses. But no need to worry, because Congress, for those who remember, Congress responded by saying, no, don't worry, folks. We're going to get together and we're going to work out some relief packages, some stimulus bills. And we're going to remedy this problem of unemployment, business closures, by just printing trillions of dollars. What could possibly go wrong? So that was a year ago. And yeah, if inflation takes hold, which apparently it seems to be doing now, according to recent stories, the dollar dips after the Fed calms U.S. inflation jitters. And apparently, U.S. consumer prices have increased the most in nearly 12 years in April due to booming demand. Seems to be hitting a lot of areas, particularly lumber, maybe hitting gas prices. That might be partially the reason why gas prices keep going up. But it does seem to be hitting the consumer price index at the moment. Meanwhile, people have this sentiment. But, okay, so go back. At the time, I think a lot of people were under the assumption that all of this spending, all of this COVID relief it was just temporary. And if it results in inflation, we'll cross that bridge when the bridge moves under our feet, and hopefully the bridge doesn't collapse when it does. And when we're finally past this, when we have vaccines that are approved by the FDA, when we finally start opening back up and people can go back to work, then people will just go back to work and we don't have to keep spending money. Look at how much this goalpost has shifted. Now we're at the point where it's just like, well, if people are getting too much in unemployment benefits to the point where they don't want to come back to work, well, then maybe your business model needs to change. This sentiment is shared by people like Matt Rogers over here. He has 58,000 followers on Twitter. Ilhan Omar sharing the same sentiment, saying businesses that pay their workers fairly aren't having trouble finding workers. And if your business can't turn profit without paying people starvation wages, like the $7.50 an hour federal minimum wage, you should not be in business. Could you imagine being a business pre-pandemic, being a business owner, someone who really puts it all on the line, who has put so much of your mental efforts, sweats, time, and tears into your business. COVID comes in, lockdowns are imposed, and you're probably spending the good part of a year, just waiting eagerly to open up your business. Open up your business, finally get things going again, make some money, doing what you want to do. And then things start to open up, and this is how the culture responds to you. Like, oh, just pay your workers more, and if you can't afford to, then you shouldn't exist.
These guys are a fucking disgrace.
Of course, according to a lot of stories, a lot of these businesses are paying well more than the minimum wage. Louisiana businesses are struggling to fill service jobs, and according to this article, they're paying more than they were before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, most cooks were getting $11 an hour in Louisiana. Now many of them are making between $13 and $18 an hour. And some businesses, as you can see right here, are trying to offer their applicants $2 more than they asked for, and they're still struggling to fill these positions. Same thing's going on in states like Kentucky. You have businesses offering up to $1,000 a month for the first month as a bonus for people who come into work, and businesses are still struggling to fill these positions. McDonald's is raising their average hourly wage to $13 an hour. Chipotle's doing the same thing, but people are acting like this is just $7 an hour minimum wage jobs. Which even then, even if that's the case, I think there was this assumption that once things start opening back up, that people should go back to work. Even our highly flawed president, jibber-jabbering Joe Biden, shared this sentiment, saying we're making it clear to anyone collecting unemployment who's offered a suitable job, they must take the job or lose their unemployment benefits. Not really confident that that's going to get enforced, but he said this to the chagrin of a lot of his voters and a lot of other people on the left. So, for those who have been paying attention, for those keeping score at home, you have all these goons like Kyle Kulinski and Stephanie Ruhle and Ilhan Omar and many more. First off, what are they actually advocating for here? They're advocating that we just print trillions of dollars, which devalues the money, which destroys purchasing power, which is bad for everyone. A lot of people have this sentiment, this notion that inflation is good for the rich. I've heard Tucker Carlson even say stuff like this, which I can understand that line of thinking because if you're rich, you probably have a lot in assets like land, property, housing, stocks and whatnot, and if inflation goes up, the price of your assets will probably go up. I would say that's somewhat of a superficial gain. I would say that the rich are probably better able to deal with inflation, but inflation is bad for everyone, but it is the worst for the poorest of the poor, because if you're poor, you need your dollar to go a lot farther than someone like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, who apparently are rich due to unfettered capitalism, according to Bolshevik Bernie Sanders. I don't know how anyone lived through the pandemic and all the lockdowns and the trillions of dollars in spending and all the other regulatory agencies and crap that we have in America and still think that we have unfettered capitalism. But okay, Bernie. Anyway, they're advocating that we destroy the purchasing power of the dollar in the name of relief. And they don't mind destroying productive output, as Kyle Kulinski said, we're just paying people to not work. What's the big deal? Where have we seen this happen before? Kyle thinks that because of, new schools of economic thought like PMMT, print more money theory, that you can just get away with printing endless amounts of money without consequence, even though we're already seeing the consequence. But we've seen this happen in places like Venezuela, according to the story from NPR, as you can see here. Venezuela, they thought that they could remedy their problems once oil prices tanked because they were heavily reliant on exports to fund their already horrible economy. And they were printing money they're printing a lot before that, but then they ramped up the printing presses after oil prices tanked. And on top of that, that country, Venezuela, was never really producing much to begin with. As you can see right here, they were heavily reliant on oil exports to import things like food and other goods. Of course, a lot of socialism. Socialism. It wasn't socialism that destroyed Venezuela. It was just poor planning. And how could they know that oil prices were going to go down? And it was really sanctions imposed by the U.S. government that really tanked Venezuela's economy.
Blow it out your ass.
Whatever. Isn't it also funny? Because I hear a lot of criticisms of capitalism from socialists. They say stuff like, capitalism, it's not a good system. It's not sustainable because capitalism, I guess, relies on infinite economic growth. Meanwhile, there's only a finite amount of resources. Meanwhile, whenever socialists take over a resource-rich country like Venezuela, stuff still goes to shit. Going back to what I said, these people like Stephanie Ruhle and Kyle Kulinski and others, these people are okay with destroying the purchasing power of the dollar, which screws over the poor. They're screwing the poor in the name of helping the poor and the unemployed. They're okay with destroying the productive output of the economy, and they're okay with destroying businesses because obliterating the economy and everyone's standard of living is apparently much preferable to people going back to work for $13 an hour. Either these dopes have not thought things through nearly enough, or they're evil pieces of shit.